Thank you, Joe. Wow, this is amazing. We started AllJoin about 5 years ago. It was me and another guy writing code. I don't think at that time we had any idea that it was going to grow into anything this big and exciting and important. Well, we hoped, I guess, as one does. But as you can see from the slide, I'm the chair of the technical steering committee. And this is an update of what I would say is the state of the community, and give you a sense of what's going on, what we're doing, what's working, where we can improve, and we'll take it from there. So I love this quote. I don't know Matt Assay, and Adobe is not a member of the AllSeen Alliance at this point in time, but he wrote in a blog, he was talking about why the Internet of Things has to be open sourced. And he made some really good points. Companies will win over Internet of Things not in the boardroom, but on the command line. It's going to be grassroots. It's going to be the developer community. It's going to be people writing code, contributing code. And his observation that so far only AllSeen has done that with code available for download today is pretty important. Right? I mean, there are a number of activities, many activities in the IoT world, but how many of them are open source at this point in time? How many have a code base that you can download, that you can incorporate into your products, that you can actually use? I think it's one. Okay. You've got to press it twice. Double click. At this point in time, the AllSeen Alliance is the world's largest collaborative open source project targeted 100% on developing code for the Internet of Things. There are lots of activities going on. The Internet of Things is, there's many projects, many companies doing Internet of Things. The AllSeen Alliance is 100% focused on Internet of Things. There are many technologies that are being deployed that were developed for other purposes that are now being repositioned as Internet of Things technologies, and that's all good. That's great stuff. Use what you have, adapt it to the changing market. That's great. But our focus is clear. It's all about Internet of Things. And I think that focus is something we need to maintain and differentiates what we're doing here in the AllSeen Alliance from a lot of other activities that are going on. We have over 90 members. Of course, I'm adding in sponsored memberships, community memberships, premier memberships. But it's over 90 committed to developing interoperability standards for devices, applications, and services. That's a lot of companies. So where are we? We've got working groups. When we started, we had 3. We had base services, core working group, and developer tools. 6 are working groups that have been formed since the Alliance started. And they cover ranges, as you can see, from analytics and telemetry, of course, compliance and certification. Compliance and certification, developing all of the test tools that are required to ensure that we have the ability to test devices and test solutions to ensure that they meet certain criteria, that they qualify to be regarded as AllSeen Alliance branded products. Connected lighting, defining the standards that will allow you to buy light bulbs from different manufacturers, put them in your home and have them all work. Be able to group together scenes, light bulbs from different manufacturers, and not just have the situation where there's an app for that, and there's an app for that, and there's an app for that, when they're all light bulbs. So, I mean, that's a really important sort of metric for how successful we are, in that we can actually bring together devices that are from different manufacturers and have them interoperate in a seamless way. Of course, that's particularly important when you broaden out from a specific vertical like lighting, when you start talking about many different kinds of appliances, right? from different manufacturers, and I want to have that sort of holistic experience in my home, in my business, in my industrial setting, where these devices are able to interoperate and communicate. The core working group is where we develop the all-join framework. We've got the standard core library, we've got the thin core library, which is targeted at embedded devices, and that's also where we've put the all-join.js project that Joe mentioned. We've got the data-driven API working group that Technicolor is driving to provide an API that addresses a data-driven worldview of devices. I think that that's a very important aspect of treating the data as number one. Developer tools, where we are providing tools that enable the people writing the code or facilitate the writing of code for the Alliance. The gateway agent, we've talked about that quite a few times. That's how we anticipate getting secure connectivity into the home, and allows us to provide in a very secure, mediated, and opt-in kind of fashion access from outside the home, inside the home, to applications and devices and services running in the home. And then we have a smart home working group. Unfortunately, the smart home working group maintainer is in China from Haier, and due to visa problems, they weren't able to get here. So we had actually, one of the sessions we were going to be having this afternoon was a smart home session, and we pulled that off the agenda because the project maintainer wasn't there. But a number of you have expressed enough interest in it that we put it back on the agenda as a birds of a feather session. So those of you who want to get together and talk about home automation and smart home type topics can meet. It's in parallel with the other working groups, with the other breakout sessions, and it will be in the Saratoga room. So what about collaboration? The reason to do open source is clear. I mean, you do open source to collaborate. It's crowdsourcing of software development. You don't open source unless you've got some reason to do so. And the idea of open source is that the sum of the parts is greater, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, right? So in terms of what's going on currently and where we're at in terms of the AllSeen Alliance and the working groups and projects, we've got 36 total projects. They're not all active right now. In some of them are in early stages. Code is, in some cases, been contributed, but for whatever reason, things are taking a little bit more time to get off the ground than others. 5 of them are so new that you wouldn't expect any code yet to be contributed, but part of actually proposing a project is to actually allocate and define the resources that are going to be deployed on that project, and it's one of the gating criteria for actually having the technical steering committee accept a project. I'll be talking more about that this afternoon when we have our technical steering committee meeting with an audience, something we're not used to doing. In terms of contributions, we've got 70 individual contributors. That's 70 individuals who are actively contributing code to the project, the overall AllSeen Alliance project, across those various projects. They represent 13 companies. This is something we'd like to see improved, obviously. We have 90 members, and right now, 13 of those members are doing most of the code contributions. So we could be doing better. We should be doing better, and hopefully, as we get into the next year, it's going to be our AllSeen Alliance birthday in a month. And although we can all sing happy birthday now if you want. 2,700 contributions. That's a big number. So that gives you a sense of how much activity is actually going on. So these are individual commits. Some are small, some are large, some are bug fixes, some are features, etc. But that's a pretty big number. So there's a lot of work going on. Who knows what a JIRA ticket is? Oh, well, that's better than I expected, actually. So JIRA is the bug tracking and issue tracking system that we use for tracking bugs and issues within the AllSeen Alliance. And at this point in time, we've had 1,600 submitted. Most of these have been bugs, I think, some features. 1,250 closed. I guess that's what you'd expect with 7,700 contributions. Like half of them were bug fixes, I guess. We've still got about 330 or so open or in progress. These numbers are probably inaccurate by now. They're at least 2 weeks old, or maybe a week old. But things are moving pretty fast. So, I think looking at this, we've got a lot going on. We could have more. We could have more involvement, more contributions from more companies. But I think that we can give ourselves a pat on the back that we're actually doing things. We're actually collaborating. If this thing was running all joint, it'd be much more reliable. There we go. Oops. So I'm going to talk about the release roadmap a little bit. I'm not going to go into great detail. We've had so far, since the Alliance formed, 2 releases, 14.02 and 14.06. If it's not obvious, our release numbering system is based on year and month. So we had one in February, we had one in July. And we've got a 14.12 release to wrap up the year. So we've got a whole bunch of developers, various companies all plugging away, fixing bugs, running tests, running scalability tests, running robustness tests, trying to get to the point where we have our 14.12 release ready so that everybody can avoid having to work through the holidays. When we started, we had chosen a 4-month release cadence for core and services. And earlier this year, TSC voted to switch that over to a 6-month release cadence just because 4 months was not enough time to get releases out. We needed more time for feature development and testing between the releases. Testing's always the bottleneck in software, everybody knows that. It just takes so long, especially with a piece of software that's complex, multi-platform, multi-OS. It's just, there's a big combinatorial matrix that we have to deal with. And then we also wanted to give the working groups more flexibility about when they release the code. So we changed our rules about how releases are made from the working group. So originally we thought that we would be able to stipulate that we get simultaneous releases where the core and all the services that are based on that core would be released simultaneously. I don't know what we were thinking. It was not realistic. So now we've loosened the rules, and a release of a service merely has to identify exactly which version of the core it's being released from. Release 14.02, this was our first AllSeen Alliance release, and it was mostly stability and bug fixes after the initial contribution of the code from QCE. Release 14.06 was setting some of the underpinnings that are required for Security 2.0. We added ECC-based authentication algorithms. I think the original optimistic goal was to get the Security 2.0 into the 14.12 release. But practically speaking, it couldn't work that way. It was a bigger problem. We needed to get more partners, more members involved. And as a result, I think we've got a much better solution, but it's not going to be in the 14.02 release. Hopefully, it's going to be in the 14.12 release. It's going to be later. But we did put the underpinnings, which is this elliptic curve-based cryptography, into 14.06. We also started the migration to MDNS for discovery. Previously, we were using an all-join specific port and a protocol that was pretty much homegrown, and we're moving more to adopt the MDNS standard. And we added events and actions support. Events and actions is pretty interesting because it allows you, it's a little building block that allows you to do sort of if this then that type interactions with AllJoin. I mean, it doesn't solve all problems. It's not sort of generally applicable, but there's a sweet spot of simple applications you can develop using this concept that when this happens, do that. And we have this notion of a rules engine that allows you to create the mapping between when this happens, do that. And then that information gets stored in the network on a service that runs in the network. And you now have a system that is able to operate on its own without additional user intervention. So it's a very powerful concept. The imminent core release, 14.12. Now this is a collaborative effort between QCE, Technical, and Microsoft. Now, QCE contributed the original code, and naturally enough, you know, the critical mass of the development team remained in, you know, QCE. So that's where the expertise lay, and so on and so forth. So, you know, inevitably that's where most of the work's going to be done. But now we've got Technical and Microsoft contributing significantly to this code base. So this is the first major release of core that is truly collaborative. And I mean, I expect that that's going to continue to expand and grow as time goes on, and we'll get additional opportunities for collaboration. The primary features are UDP transport. We're moving off TCP/IP pretty much universally to UDP. Right now, we've got router node to router node running over UDP in 14.12, and we'll be adding leaf node to router node when we get to the next release. And then improve support and optimizations for publish, subscribe use cases. This is very much driven by requirements coming out of the data-driven API efforts going on in that working group. This is what we're looking at in terms of the roadmap. You can see we're homing in on final release on December 17th, and everybody can go home for the holidays. So I'm going to talk about some collaboration highlights. I'm sure that there's other collaborations going on that, and I know there are other collaborations going on, so don't feel slighted if I didn't mention them. I just wanted to focus on the ones that have been the ones that are actually resulting in the largest number of contributions right now. Lighting service framework, collaborative development effort between LifeX and QCE. First release is scheduled, I should probably say first release rather than release 1.0. That's not 1.0 is not actually our numbering scheme. The first release is scheduled for November 15th. It's coming up very, very soon. The release includes a lamp service, lighting controller service, and sample applications for Android and iOS. Code's already out there for the most part. It's just, you know, on the march towards a release, so testing and so on. So that's one. The gateway agent, collaborative development effort between Affinity and QCE. First release based on 14.06 is scheduled for December, and this release has got a gateway management app, a TR069 client, XMP connector plugin. So you know, we're beginning to add the connectivity to get us out to the cloud in a variety of different technologies. Package manager, so that one of the aspects of the gateway, as those of you who attend the breakout session later will learn when you go into a deep dive on this, is it has a plug-in architecture that allows what we call service provider modules to be plugged in, so that you can have a variety of different options and different ways of getting out to the cloud. And the package manager is the installer that allows you to install those service provider modules. A control application, currently Android is targeted. One thing that we tend to need, I think, is iOS expertise and developers and contributors who are able to focus more in the iOS space. That would be certainly something that if you're if you have that expertise within your member company and you're looking for ways to contribute, that's a great way to contribute. And then a reference implementation for OpenWRT. OpenWRT is a Linux distribution targeted specifically at wireless access points. So the reference implementation of the gateway agent is actually designed to run on a Wi-Fi access point. It's not the only way it needs. It's not the only way it works, but that's the reference implementation. And then Security 2.0. I mean, this was a four-way collaborative effort. Microsoft, QCE, Technicolor, and Symantec, and I think we now have other companies who are interested in, further collaborating on Security 2.0. It provides fine-grained control of operations the devices are able to perform on each other. Garrett talked about this, and with the end-to-end encryption and a set of permission or access rules that using the elliptic curve cryptography. The architecture is finalized and high-level design is completed. The documents are all on the Alliance wiki. Coding's underway and contributions are being submitted. And there's also a security manager which is going to provide support for key management and permission rules. So how can you all participate? How can we increase? How can we improve on that secure card? How can we improve on that scorecard so that when I or somebody else comes up and talks about this at the next AllSeen Alliance Summit, we can say, we've got 150 members and we've got 90 companies contributing. I mean, how can we get there? I want to point out it's not just code contributions. People can contribute. There are many ways to contribute. You don't just have to write code and contribute code. So I'm going to talk about some of that. There are many ways to participate and to collaborate. Obviously, contributing code to existing projects is one, the obvious one. We've got a bunch of projects. Good to have more participation, more hands on deck, writing code, contributing, engaging with the working groups, attending the calls, following the mailing list, etc., contributing to existing projects. But another one is critical code review. Plenty of people can review code. They have the expertise. They can go in and look at the code and they can provide comments. They can say, that's not the way to do it. It looks like you could have structured this code a little differently. It would be more efficient if you did it this way. I mean, this kind of input is incredibly valuable. And, that's another area that you can contribute. And it might be that, you're not ready to contribute code, but can contribute in this way with code reviews. You can propose new projects around a center of interest, expertise, or need. If there's a particular area, I mean, this all has to be driven bottom up from the membership. Don't expect somebody else to come in and create a project in your area of expertise if, you do it, right? And I've got some examples of that as I come to it. Testing, always good to have test resources. Build automation and documentation is areas where we need help. Just listening in and providing feedback in the working group meetings, right? And then sponsor and participate in hackathons. In terms of contributing to existing projects, we always need sample programs. Developers always appreciate well-documented sample code. So even if you don't feel like you're comfortable contributing code to, say, core, you might be comfortable contributing some sample programs. It's a way of contributing code without running the risk of breaking anything, being yelled at by the maintainers, right? Test code. Test coverage is always a challenge. More tests, better quality. That's a simple, very simple rule. The more you test, better quality. And stress tests. We want to operate all join in many different environments, and yet it's hard to set up those environments. And then we have another area is implementation of new language bindings. There are many languages. There's Python. We don't have a binding for that right now. There's Go. That's no binding for that. Ruby, Swift. People are going to be writing code in these programming languages. We want them to be able to write all join applications in these programming languages. So these are opportunities where people might be able to contribute. Code review. We could have code review for security vulnerabilities. Check for buffer overflows, unsafe access, uninitialized values, use of dangerous constructs, all the good stuff. Best practices. Do we have clean, understandable APIs? Is it well structured? Is it modular? Could it be done better? And then, what about comments? Is it well commented? Is it well documented? Performance, stability, scalability, thread safeness, and the algorithms that are in use. These are all areas that people with the expertise that we have in the member companies can contribute. And they can file JIRA tickets. If you find something that doesn't look right, file a ticket on it. Somebody will pay attention to it. Here's some ideas for some project proposals. Now, I know some of this is already being covered fairly recently, actually, but automotive, it's a greenfield opportunity for somebody to show leadership. Today, we don't have a project in that space. What about services for describing and discovering indoor location? Nobody's doing that yet. Maybe a manageable project for a smaller team. Home appliance services. Now, we have just had a proposal that just came in after I wrote this slide, but generic functionality that crosses device categories, and then functionality for specific appliance categories. Energy management. Nobody doing anything in that space yet. What about mapping existing protocols like SEP 2.0 into AllJoin? Right? And then integration of new transports. We all know, Thread is out there. It's a IPv6 or a 6LoWPAN based protocol. AllJoin will run just fine over Thread. It's an opportunity for somebody to actually do the work. Zigbee, Z-Wave, etc. These are all candidates that we can, wireless protocols that we could run AllJoin on. Testing. Test resources are always in short supply. More testing, better quality of the release, obviously. So download, build, and test master and feature branches. If you can do that, you will be contributing significantly to the project. If you want to know where the need is, ask the project maintainers. Just say, how can I help? Where would you like, what area of test coverage would you like me to participate and help in? And then again, if you find issues, file JIRA tickets. A bug not found will be a bug not fixed. You can quote me on that one. Build automation and documentation. These are two areas that we have struggled to try to get members to come and participate and help with. We need people with experience with build automation. We've got one very tired guy sitting over there in that corner who carries most of the load on this. And we need people who understand how to deal with Jenkins, which is the automated build system we use, JIRA, which is the bug and issue tracking system, Git, which is the source code control, and Gerrit, which is what we use for code review and process automation. If you want to contribute, you want to participate and help in this area, send an email to the AllSeen infrastructure mailing list. Documentation is always important. We keep it up to date and flesh it out and make it readable. You might be able to contribute in that space or help with organizing the wiki. We have a mailing list for that too. So there's plenty of ways to contribute. Just participate in the working groups. Just call in. They're open, they're usually recorded. You can download the recording and the presentations if you want to get a sense of what they're like. You can catch up on the technical discussion. And it's a great way to learn how you might want to contribute. Listen in on some of the technical calls, on the working group calls, and just figure out whether, yeah, this is an area where I could help. I understand this stuff. The project maintainers, they always welcome technical input. They want to be sure that they have quality and completeness in their interface definitions. We want consistency of APIs, and feedback is most useful, of course, before coding begins. So while we're in the early stages of defining interfaces, defining APIs, that's a great time to be contributing. I want to talk about the last bullet, which is hackathons and the importance of developer outreach. So this is Gartner. By 2017, 50% of Internet of Things solutions will originate in startups that are less than 3 years old. Now, backing that off, it means that they are startups that are starting today, right? 2014. These startups will be looking for the technologies that will make them successful. And we have an opportunity to really do some developer outreach here via hackathons. It's an opportunity to engage with the maker and hacker communities to promote the use of AllJoin. We've had 3 Hackfests, and they've been fairly successful. But earlier in the year, the TSC authorized small subsidies for supporting events on a local basis. There are Hackfests, hackathons, maker evenings going all over the US, all over the world right now. Everywhere, every corner of the planet, there are people getting together, doing creative things with cheap hardware to do Internet of Things type application development. So if you've got one of these events going on in your locale, or you already participate, the TSC has authorized small subsidies, so you can buy pizza or beverages, provide a small award for the best hack, maybe give away some free hardware or something. But so far nobody's taken us up on it. We authorized. Joe, do you remember what I don't remember what the budget was, but it's a bucket of money. Yeah. So it's a bucket of money, and not a cup. Yes. So to the extent that $1,000 here or $1,500 there can go a long way. In some of these events, you can buy a bunch of T-shirts for $1,500. We also have developer boards available to loan, so you can actually borrow. You can actually get the hardware. We can have it FedExed out. You can use it for the hack, send it back, right? So we're trying to make it as easy as possible. So another important area you can help. And that's it. That's my update. So thank you.